It's killing far too many Californians. 110 people a week now are dying from fentanyl overdoses. But we've seen no action out of this legislature, and it's unacceptable. Public safety committees on both sides of the houses are refusing to hear bills, killing good bills with bipartisan support. And for years we've been calling for action to see nothing happen. And so today we're calling for action, for urgent action, for the immediate action that is needed, for this scourge upon our communities. And we're going to do things a little bit differently. Normally you have a lot of legislators getting up at these press conferences talking about things. We want to hear from the victims. We want you to hear directly from the victims who've been calling for action on this, who've been calling for real solutions to the fentanyl crisis. And so this morning you're going to get an opportunity to hear from many of those activists. People who've had personal turmoil, they've lost loved ones, but they've turned it into action, fighting to prevent others from having to go through the same thing that they've had to go through. And those are the families that these public safety committees need to hear from. Those are the people they need to look in the eye and say, we're going to hold your bills. We're going to hold action on this. We're going to wait months more. The time is now. And so we want to allow this opportunity for the victims to speak directly to you in the media and to the people in this Capitol building so that we get real action on this crisis once and for all. And so with that, I'd like to bring up our Senate Caucus Chair, Janet Wen.
California is in the midst of a fentanyl crisis that is wreaking havoc in communities across our state. Fentanyl is now the leading cause of death for young adults in the United States, surpassing suicides, gun violence, and car accidents. This crisis demands immediate attention and action. The legislature must take action and pass bills that help us combat this crisis, including 4 Senate Republican-led measures that bring the attention to this crisis that it deserves. First, Senate Bill 62 that I introduced would hold drug dealers accountable for possessing 1 kilo, which is 2.2 pounds of fentanyl, which equals to 10,000 pills. This amount would kill 500,000 people, and that's 500,000 people in my district. Each senator represents 1 million residents. This legislation would never mistaking it to be targeting users at all. Second, SB 44, a bipartisan measure led by Senator Ochoa Bo, would require courts to advise individuals convicted of felony of fentanyl sales and manufacturing related offenses that offenses could result in a charge of voluntary manslaughter or murder. Third, Senate Bill 237 by Senator Grove would stop the transportation of fentanyl. This proposal would increase penalties for sale, possession of sale, transportation, and importation of fentanyl by creating a greater deterrent for drug traffickers. We can reduce the supply of this deadly drug on the streets. Finally, Senate Bill 19 by Senator Sierra would create the Anti-Fentanyl Abuse Task Force to collect and organize data on the nature and extent of fentanyl abuse in California and evaluate the best practices in combating it. California Senate Republicans stand with victims' families today in support of action to address the fentanyl crisis. Together, we can end this crisis and ensure that our communities, our children, are safe, healthy, and has a future ahead of them. For our next generation, we must come together and save our children. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Senator. And now I'm going to introduce Assemblyman Joe Patterson, who's going to introduce an advocate from his community.
Thank you so much. I believe there are a lot of good things that we can do on fentanyl, and I believe there's a three-pronged approach. One of them is education, but one of them is holding people accountable that are bringing this drug into our communities. Actually, just the other day, my 10-year-old son says to me, he says, "Hey, Dad, do you know that they're making fentanyl look like candy now?" He's 10 years old. He shouldn't have to know that. And because of work done in Placer County by several people, including our district attorney, Morgan Geyer, who's here today, and also parent advocates. Unfortunately, we lost one of my neighbors, Zach Didier, and his parents, Chris Didier and Laura Didier, have been the foundation of many people in our community, and I think lives being saved throughout Placer County and throughout the state because of the work that they're both doing. And it is my pleasure to introduce Laura Didier, and I'm very thankful for her being here today.
I speak about my son just about every day, and it never gets easier. Zach was an incredible young man. He was only 17 when a counterfeit pill made of fentanyl killed him on December 27th of 2020. The last day I saw my son alive was Christmas. I never imagined that 2 days later I would see him wheeled out of his home in a body bag by the coroner. Zach had no history with abusing drugs. He had no medical issues. There were no drugs in his room. It was such a mystery why he would have died at his desk 2 days after Christmas, found by his father. My 22-year-old son had to witness that, had to see his father administer CPR to his baby brother while he called 911. My daughter had to call me and tell me that her brother was dead. Families should not be dealing with this. This is a new crisis. It requires all of us working together to solve it. My son's story is so common. I know so many parents in our state whose stories are so similar. And grieving parents like myself, like Zach's dad, Chris, like the other parents you're going to hear from today, we are out there in the community. We are talking to young people. We are at schools. We are doing assemblies. We are doing hard, heartbreaking work. And we need our elected officials to stand with us in this work and do what they can. I'm grateful, I'm so grateful to Placer County, where my son was killed. Placer County is doing amazing work and can serve as a model for other counties in our state. I thank you so much for embracing my family with compassion and support. My baby boy was amazing. He should be at college right now at UCLA. Got accepted there. His father and I had to open that acceptance letters 3 months after we buried him. He was going to do amazing things in this world. He always wanted to help people, and that's why his father and I have decided that we're going to continue that legacy of serving the community and helping others in his memory. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And unfortunately, we've heard too many stories like Laura's of parents who've lost their children to these counterfeit pills. They don't even know that that's what's in them. That's what's going on our streets. And that's why we need action today. So it's a pleasure of mine to introduce another member of my community who's dedicated most of her life to mentoring young people, mentoring and coaching young people, but lost her brother to this scourge. And so I'd love to have you guys welcome Natalie Page.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Natalie Page Whitaker, and I'm really glad to see all of your faces here today. All of us standing here today are sick and tired of losing loved ones to fentanyl. Today is our day to stand up and be vulnerable about the fact that fentanyl destroys our families, has changed our lives, and has taken loved ones away from us. Today I share my brother's story in hopes of making an impact on the fight against fentanyl poisoning. Brett Page is and was my brother. Brett and I grew up in Yuba City. We grew up in a household that loved us, fed us, our parents taught us from right from wrong. We were a normal family. My brother and I both graduated from Sutter Union High School, and my baby brother was a stellar athlete. He played football, baseball, soccer, he wrestled. He loved to hunt, he loved to golf, he loved to fish. He loved his big white truck. But most of all, when he was younger, he loved a good party. My brother Brett was the life of the party. I think at first the party scene in high school was something my brother enjoyed. It was social, it was fun, popular people partied. If you didn't party, you were probably missing out. As time passed, my brother's party habits became his way to cope with anxiety, failures, and feelings. Drugs and alcohol provided my brother an escape from reality. Drugs provided him the way to medicate his racing thoughts, to numb out, quiet anxiety, and emotional pain that he would feel when things got hard. This fun partying in time would turn into a battle, and the battle would be addiction. My brother's drug use would continue on and off in his later years. He was truly the unicorn addict. Brett was able to hold amazing jobs, make lots of money, maintain relationships, and not once did he ever get arrested. In the end, my brother would end up buying his last pills from a trusted friend who was his drug dealer. On January 21st, 2021, I was woken up at 2:30 a.m. by a knock at the door by the Sutter County Sheriff's Department. 2 officers came to tell me that they had found my brother dead in the Sutter Cemetery in his big white truck. When they found him, he was warm to the touch. They had tried to Narcan him and perform CPR on him, but they were not successful. I will never forget when both of the officers hugged me and said, "We are so sorry, Natalie. We played baseball with your brother. He was a good man." That moment changed my life forever. I was the one who had to go and tell my parents that my brother was dead. Just think about that. Later in the investigation, my brother's death, we would find out that yes, my brother did die from taking a drug that was laced with 1,600 milligrams of fentanyl. My brother never had a chance once he took that pill. My brother had no idea that the drug he was taking was laced. My brother did not go out to that cemetery to die. He went out there to get high, to numb out, go report to work the next week, and see his family, wife, and kids. My brother was 36 when he died. His death changed our worlds forever. That's why I stand in front of you today. If you for 1 second think, this cannot happen to me, this can't happen to my friends, or no way this is not going to happen in our community, you are sorely wrong. It is happening right now. Fentanyl is in our streets, it's in our schools. I've seen the deals go down in our parking lot at the high school. It's even on our playgrounds. Fentanyl does not care how old you are, where you come from, how much money you have, what race you are, what gender you are, addict or non-addict. If you take it, it will kill you. Today, I say it out loud that I am sick of all the heartache and pain that fentanyl has brought to my family, my community, and to my future of my children. I demand that the Public Safety Committee act on the subject of fentanyl. Hold dealers accountable. Stop enabling. This has nothing to do with Democrats or Republicans. 110 Californians are dying a day to this drug. Many of these people are not overdosing to die. They are being poisoned. How many people have to die before we take action? The time is now. We must take back our communities. We must educate ourselves, our families, young and old. We must protect our children. My brother Brett became a statistic, and although I dearly miss him, I will continue to fight in his memory against fentanyl. Thank you for your time. God bless you all, and please remember my brother Brett Page.
morning. I'm Assemblyman Bill Saley. I'm also a former local and federal prosecutor, and I've unfortunately seen this crisis up front and personal. And crisis is an understatement. Our kids are dying. The days of recreational drug use are over. One pill can kill, and we have to start acting and treating this issue differently than it's ever been treated before. Our kids are dying, and for the chairmen of the Public Safety Committee of the Assembly and the Senate to sit on these bills is unconscionable and a dereliction of duty. And we are demanding that they pass the bills. And if they won't do it, then we're asking you, the public, to demand that they do it. They are accountable to you, the public. So call them and demand that they do that. And today with me is Matt Capilouto, father of Alexandra Capilouto, who the bill SB 44 is named after. And he's also president of Drug-Induced Homicide. And I'd like you to hear his story this morning.
Good morning. While I was honored to be invited to today's event, I would be lying to you if I said I was happy to be here. I'm not happy to be here. But as a living victim of a murdered child, I have to be here and will continue to show up to speak on behalf of families like mine. I say living victim because many of us speaking today have experienced the loss of a child, a friend, or a family member at the hands of evil. And living each day since the killing of our daughter Alexandra is a reminder of a life she will never experience. Me, my wife, our family are victims of the murderer who chose drug money over the life of our Alex. It's been over 3 years since she's been gone, and I have spoken in front of groups, councils, boards, congressmen, and committee members. I tell the story over and over again, like many of the people here today. It tears open a deep wound every single time. The pain of reliving that day never goes away, but I don't want it to, because like my daughter would have, we are fighting to save others. I can't imagine not fighting to ensure that other families like mine won't have to endure this pain. I want to prevent more murdered victims like Alex and more living victims like my family. That's what matters to me now. And you would think that is exactly what would be at the forefront of the minds on the California Senate Public Safety Committee. But so far, I haven't seen anything that resembles a real desire by Senate committee members Scott Wiener, Stephen Bradford, Nancy Skinner, or Aisha Wahab to do much of anything to prevent more deaths from fentanyl poisoning occurring in our state. As of today, every week, 110 Californians are being killed by drug dealers distributing fentanyl. This is unacceptable to me. This is unacceptable to all the people here today. This is unacceptable for the majority of our state legislators. So I ask, why is it acceptable by the California Senate Public Safety Committee? I have been here 3 times to support bills going before this committee. The last one, SB 44, just a couple of weeks ago. Alexandra's law was widely supported by the majority of our legislators in Sacramento. We had unprecedented support with leaders in communities and organizations from all over the state putting their good names and reputations on the line to do something about an epidemic ravaging our communities. Why? Because California has the highest number of fentanyl deaths in the nation with no serious consequences for fentanyl dealers. And that's exactly what SB 44 would have done. When a drug dealer is convicted of a fentanyl-related drug offense, the bill would require the offenders to be served a written advisory and admonishment. The document would advise them of the danger of manufacturing and distributing fentanyl, and of the potential future criminal liability if another person dies as a result of that person's continued actions. Basically, they are warned that if they are convicted once of selling fentanyl illegally and they do it again and someone dies as a result, they can be charged with murder. The bill creates a procedure which mirrors what's called a Watson advisement when someone is convicted of a DUI and causes a car accident. If they are drunk and cause another accident which results in a death, they can be charged with murder. That exists right now. It's one of the ways we have been able to drive down DUI fatalities. SB 44, Alexandra's Law, isn't outlandish. It's not designed to fill the jails and prisons with petty drug offenders. It establishes a semblance of accountability for drug dealers who knowingly continue to sell fentanyl on our streets, which results in yet another death. But those committee members, once again, stopped a bill that would absolutely save the lives of Californians. Their misguided reasoning for rejecting SB 44 isn't based on the best interests of public safety, the very words the committee is named for. In fact, to date, the Safety Committee has not passed one bill that can put a fentanyl dealer behind bars. Not a single one. This willful, irresponsible dedication to doing nothing can only be described as a massive failure to act on behalf of Californians. It's a dereliction of their duty as assigned to them in service on the committee. The mental and moral gymnastics one has to do to continue to deny justice to victims of these fentanyl-related crimes borders on criminal. The pendulum has swung too far in the direction of the killers and too far away from the victims. Why do I say that? We are facing the single deadliest drug on the streets in our history. It is a national epidemic, and you hear about it on a daily basis. Schools are scrambling to outfit teachers and staff members with Narcan. The state is making Narcan available everywhere for free. Law enforcement and public safety agencies are doing everything they can to educate our communities about the dangers of buying counterfeit pills on the streets. It's all they want to talk about when asked about what threatens our families, friends, and neighbors. Everyone is trying to figure out how to do something about this historic deadly scourge on our communities. Except who? The California Senate and Assembly Public Safety Committees. Standing here in front of you today, that's so hard for me to say, but it's absolutely true. Finally, I will tell you that as victims, my family is fortunate. Thanks to a dedicated group of federal investigators and prosecutors, the drug dealer who sold my daughter counterfeit pill is serving 9 years in federal prison. Not state prison, federal prison. It took us 3 years to get to that point, an incredible amount of effort lobbying, begging, and pleading to find some minimal amount of justice for my daughter. I said we were fortunate because only about 1% of all drug deaths result in the conviction of a drug dealer. That's unacceptable. Our state laws, or lack of, have turned drug dealers into death dealers, and with no laws in place to stop them, we have turned fentanyl dealers into serial killers. But our pain didn't end with a conviction. We are all still victims. Like many of us here, we will always be victims. And victims deserve justice. Whether it's murder, rape, molestation, assault, or any other egregious crime committed against the people we love, justice should be handed down to those that commit them. It is the very least we can do, and it would be more than this Public Safety Committee has done for victims of fentanyl poisoning. finally, I want to tell all the parents and families of victims to know that our hearts are with each and every one of you. The fights we fight are righteous and good for the memories of those that we've lost. And it's good for all Californians. We will never forget. We will never give up. We stand with all of you. Thank you.
Jim Patterson, member of the California Legislature from Fresno, California. We have just heard from victims about these public safety committees that aren't interested in public safety. Seems like they care more about repeat criminals than they do repeat victims. It is inexplicable how this California legislature can create public safety committees that do just the opposite of public safety. Pamela Smith's son Jackson died of fentanyl overdose. She has since devoted her life to educating our community about the dangers. She's a tireless advocate. She can't do this alone, and none of us can. We need the legislature to wake up out of its lethargy, to turn away from protecting those who kill and start holding those who kill accountable and responsible. How many more do we have to hear these sad, broken-hearted stories? Pamela would have testified in front of the Assembly Public Safety Committee. The committee would have heard her story. But the committee chair, essentially creating a veto, unable to even present, so that Pamela could have told her story. Well, Pamela is here today, and she will tell her story. And we hope that those of you here in the media will make sure that this gets widespread distribution. We need to shame and point out what these individuals are doing to make the lives and the heartache even worse for those who are here to tell their story. Pamela, please come tell your story of Jackson.
Good morning. And thank you to the State Republican Caucus for inviting me today to speak on this very important issue. My name is Pamela Smith and I live in Fresno. My son Jackson Smith died from a fentanyl overdose on July the 3rd of 2016 at the age of 22. I got the call that night, late in the early morning hours, from the girl that he was with, telling me that she had to call 911 because he wasn't breathing. I rushed to St. Agnes Hospital and I met with the ER doctor, who simply told me, we've been working on him for over an hour and there's nothing more we can do. And he asked me if I would like to see my son. Of course I said yes. He ushered me into the trauma room, and there was a very large nurse straddling my son, doing chest compressions, trying to save his life. Within seconds of entering that room, the doctor said, time of death, 3:18. Since Jackson's death, I have made it my mission to fight this fentanyl crisis. And I have been in front of the Public Safety Committee once before, back in April, on April 3rd, 2018, regarding AB 2467. The committee chair, I was the third one to testify that day, and after doing so, they voted it down. The committee chair expresses condolences to me for the loss of my son, but then he explained to us that the reason they voted it down was because they didn't want to spend, if they incarcerated these individuals longer, it was going to cost too much money. And they just weren't interested. Several weeks ago, Assemblyman Patterson asked me again to appear in Sacramento. I agreed. This was on AB 1508. That if someone was arrested with more than 28.35 grams of fentanyl, there was going to be stiffer penalties, jail time penalties. Well, the committee chair, Public Safety Committee Chair, Reginald Jones Sawyer, absolutely refused to hear the bill. So the bill died. We didn't even get a chance to present it, and Assemblyman Patterson worked so hard for us in this state, and he wouldn't even give us an opportunity to speak on it, and I find it outrageous, and I hope that you do as well. Later on today, I'll be speaking with Senators Shannon Grove on SB 325, the rainbow fentanyl bill. It looks like candy. It's obviously being marketed to our young people to get them addicted so they are repeat customers. These drug dealers and traffickers, they do not care how many people they kill or how many lives they ruin. And we must send a clear message to the dealers and traffickers of fentanyl that if they are caught in the state of California selling this poison, that they are going to spend a great deal of time in our jails and prisons. In my opinion, fentanyl is akin to a weapon of mass destruction. We must come together in order to solve these issues. I, as a mother who's lost her child to fentanyl, believe that something has to be done now. Because if not now, when? We are losing a generation to this fentanyl epidemic, and we must come together to solve these issues. Now is the time to act, and I ask that every Californian contact their legislators and put the pressure on the public safety committees so they can do their job. It is time. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Assemblymember Lori Davies, and what we've been hearing is just shameful. I had a bill, AB 1362, which would mandate drug education in our schools, and I was told that it would have to go under health, which is a curriculum that they will be updating in 2028. So we'll sit there until 2028. Right now, I would like to introduce Perla Mendoza, and she'll tell her story with you.
Thank you. I stand here today on behalf of my son, Daniel Elijah Figueroa, the thousands of men and women who have lost their lives to fentanyl, and our future generation. My son Elijah, my only child, born on Christmas Eve, was deceived by someone he trusted. Elijah was kind, he was thoughtful, he was a beautiful boy. He was young with plans for a bright future. My boy was only 20 years old. On September 15th, 2020, via Snapchat, Elijah ordered what appeared to be a legit pain medication. My son asked to buy a Percocet, and instead he received a counterfeit pill made of nothing but fentanyl. One pill contained a lethal dose and killed him. My boy died that night after taking one pill. He was deceived by someone who he deemed trustworthy. I confronted my son's perpetrator. I found him, and I let him know that the products he was selling were tainted, and that just one of his pills killed my boy. I begged him. I asked him to ask God to forgive him, to find a new job, career path. I thought maybe he didn't know that this drug was tainted, but he did, and he continued with business as usual. For 2.5 years, I witnessed this man sell his tainted products via social media up and down Orange County, Los Angeles County. This man was responsible for multiple deaths, not just my son. I've been in Sacramento 4 times now to testify on different bills. Senate committee members, we're families that are doing whatever we can to raise awareness and stop these senseless deaths. We're using our money, our efforts, we're doing whatever we can. I personally have started educating students in high schools and junior highs. We're doing our part as parents. We need you to do your part. My son's drug dealer was eventually caught 2.5 years after he died. I thank God for our federal agents. The day that this man was arrested, he had enough fentanyl in his possession, knowing that he killed my son. He had enough fentanyl to kill over 250,000 people. I wonder, maybe, one of the times that he had been arrested, if he would have been warned about the consequences, if he would have continued. I don't know. I mean, he didn't listen to me, but now this guy is going to be in jail for a very long time, and he deserves it. We could avoid stuff like this. If you really care about keeping people out of prison's public safety committee, then you need to do your part. You need to warn them. You need to get involved. We're losing way too many people, and you're just sitting doing nothing. We need your support. It shouldn't just be on the parents. I thank God for all the people standing behind me. It's been a long 2.5, almost 3 years. But we're not going to give up. So you're going to see me again and again and again and again until some changes are made. Thank you so much.
Good morning. I just came from a committee hearing that I wanted to welcome Pearl. Pearl's from my district, Seal Beach, California, down in Orange County. So I'm very grateful to see all of you this morning on this very difficult topic. And I am going to introduce the next speaker, Angela Webb from Arrive Alive, and she'll be right there. If you would come forward, please. Thank you very much for coming. Where are you from?
Roseville.
You're from Brooklyn. Thank you for sharing your story today. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I begin, I want to applaud the families here today who have suffered so much pain from losing their child, their sibling, and yet show enormous courage to step up so that others don't share in this pain. Thank you. So now I beg the question, when will the Public Safety Committee find their courage to step up so no other families have to experience such tragedy? My name is Angela Webb. I am the CEO and founder of Arrive Alive California, and it has been a privilege to partner with local officials in several counties throughout California to bring prevention, education, and awareness regarding this deadly fentanyl crisis. In less than 8 months, Arrive Alive California has reached 42,817 youth, their parents, and our community members, and we are just getting started. Our goal is to reach as many young people and their influencers where they're at and in their language before the destruction occurs. No longer is the narrative war on drugs even relevant today. Now is the time to expose drug war in our backyard. Drug dealers and traffickers are bombing our communities with this poisonous, deadly chemical and killing our children. And without any accountability, this will continue. We are in the midst of the worst drug threat this country has ever known. Fentanyl has taken over everything, and it is in every drug. California is a hotspot state, and evidence shows that there is a clear public safety danger, and it's only worsening with even more powerful illicit synthetic drugs emerging. Every week, California loses approximately 110 people to this poison. Every week. Drug manufacturers are intentionally creating a product with a purpose to deceive. Essentially, we are being deceived to death. Young adults are now being targeted and tricked on popular social media apps into believing that they are purchasing safe pharmaceutical-grade products, but instead they are being given counterfeit pills that contain a lethal amount of fentanyl. Data shows it's not that more teens are using drugs. In fact, drug use among teens has gone down significantly. It is a drug supply that has gotten more deadly. A crisis that began as an opioid epidemic now has morphed into a deadly poison called fentanyl. In 2021, fentanyl was involved in 86% of children overdose deaths. CDC reports that from 2018 to 2021, there has been an increase of 356% of fentanyl-related deaths for ages 11 to 26. And this is higher than any other age group. There is a rapidly growing crisis involving illicit fentanyl disguised as prescription pills, which has especially impacted young adults. Dealers are knowingly and willingly selling illicit products that contain fentanyl to unsuspecting customers on social media for an easy profit. Our nation's young adults are now being targeted and tricked into believing that their purchase is safe, pharmaceutical-grade product by drug dealers who are peddling to our youth. Social media platforms are the #1 go-to method for drug dealers to advertise and set up a private exchange. Today, everyone here, has had an opportunity to help educate and bring awareness about the dangers of fentanyl poisoning. And today, you, the Public Safety Committee, has a responsibility to uphold accountability met with an appropriate level of consequences in order to prevent further needless loss of innocent lives. Why this crisis has not been addressed yet could only result in 2 reasons. The Public Safety Committee does not recognize the seriousness of this problem, so allow me. 4 months ago, the DEA estimated 98% of the pills sold on social media are fake, and 6 out of 10 pills have a potential to be lethal. In less than 12 months, the lethality of these counterfeit prescription pills increased from 40% to 60%. 4 months ago, they reported that 379 million potentially lethal doses have been seized. And although that number is absolutely terrifying, they only estimate they've seized 10% of what is actually on our backyard. In 2022, the CDC reported 73,000 lives were taken from illicit fentanyl. This is equivalent to about 200 deaths every single day, equivalent to an airline crashing daily for a year. How many planes would it take to crash before all planes were grounded? Or even a 9/11 event every 2 weeks for 12 months. Or the number 2 reason why this crisis is not being dealt with here with the Public Safety Committee is that the topic is too polarizing. It's too political. It's better to dismiss it altogether under the guise of, I quote, PSC Chair, I intend to work on this issue. From 17 days ago, that was what the statement was. But yet, in 17 days, 215 Californians have lost their lives. It is time to understand that this is not a red issue. This is not a blue issue. This is a red, white, and blue issue, and it's time to provide something straightforward, direct, and clear, and give law enforcement more tools to hold these death dealers accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela, and you really brought that home for us with those stats. I mean, just imagine that. When we're talking about only 10% of that, we have a dump truck here behind us representing over 28,000 pounds of fentanyl that was seized in California last year. With that FBI statistic that Angela just gave you, that means there's 280,000 pounds out there. We only seized 10% of it. And one pill can kill. One pill. Little milligrams. We need action now. And I want to thank Angela and her group, Arrive Alive, who've done a whole lot on the front of education, and getting to our youth and making them understand the dangers on our streets. That is a big part of this, is education. And getting this in the curriculum. Making sure that our kids understand this, so that they can do something to stop these things, they can take action, and they have the knowledge to avoid these things from happening. But we also need enforcement. We also need accountability. And we have several of our district attorneys with us this morning. They're trying to do everything they can to hold people accountable, but we have to give them the tools. It's policy. We have to pass laws that give them the power to do something about this. And that's why the Public Safety Committee needs to act on these bipartisan bills. Democrats and Republicans agreeing that we need to do something more to have enforcement. We need to move this forward. And I'm going to bring up one of those district attorneys, Jeff Reisig from Yolo County, who's been doing a great job on the public safety front.
So yesterday, I received a briefing from an FBI agent who works undercover on a regional task force targeting fentanyl. And what he told me was that they were doing an operation where they were buying fentanyl for $2 a pill, right over here on K Street. He said it was everywhere. $2 a pill. Well, we know that the quantities of fentanyl that are coming into California alone are staggering. It would kill everybody in the state. And you've heard the stories now from victims, and you've heard the data on the number of people who are dying, who are being poisoned because of this drug. And there's stats that show that during the height of COVID, a real crisis, more people in San Francisco died of an overdose than COVID. So the fact that we're standing here right now under the noses of the legislature, trying to convince them that this is a real crisis, this just seems crazy. This seems insane that we're having to do this right now. But we are. And I stand here today with colleagues, district attorneys from around the state, the California District Attorneys Association. We are standing shoulder to shoulder with these families, with these victims, and with these good lawmakers who are trying to do something smart, something modest, something reasonable but we need help. And so this is a call to action to everybody out there who's listening. Please pick up the phone, call your lawmaker, email them, go to their office, tell them to get off whatever they're sitting on and take action on this issue. Thank you.
I'm Ron Freitas. I'm the District Attorney of San Joaquin County. These people, these low-life fentanyl drug pushers, are poisoning our children. The public safety committees need to live up to their name and protect the public safety.
We are dealing with the crisis. That's the bottom line. And fentanyl is a poison that is killing far too many Californians, and especially our youth. And we need the Public Safety Committee to now act. And they're not going to get better. Things are not going to get better until we have the policy changes that we need out of this committee. And so now I'd like you all who are here today to come up here just in a moment and lay a flower in this basket, these baskets that we have up in front of us, to remember the victims, the far too many victims of this epidemic, of this crisis. And later we're going to deliver those flowers to the Public Safety Committee and send them a message that we need action now, we are not going away, and that taking action to fight fentanyl cannot wait any longer. Thank you.